For November the 18th, 2022, we talk about God of War Ragnarok, SIGNALIS, Somerville, and much more. Welcome to level 436. My name is Kole Ross.
I'm Dennis Furia.
I'm David Mysmith.
And I'm Ben Merkel.
And you are listening to The Level. It's a podcast for people who love video games. Thank you for understanding us not doing a show last week. I thought that I was going to be fretfully watching the election returns, and I did watch them. However, I also needed to go stay over at my parents' to be with my grandma while they were out of town. So I had a family obligation anyway.
So it all worked out in the end, much like the election.
I mean,
yeah, to quote the poetic Greg Abbott, it could have been worse.
Also, fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy. How is he still in office?
I don't know, because people love cruelty.
Texas going to Texas.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, and also just because we cannot escape political stuff, we're recording this on the night when Trump is going to announce that he's going to run for president again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen about midway through this episode. So I can't. If you hear a loud pop, that is my
Blood vessel?
Blood vessels.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm muted. My response to the re-trumpening. Yeah.
So we can leave that unpleasantness behind. Hey, happy birthday, Ben.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
It was yesterday.
You survived.
I did, another year older. It was nice. I had family in town over the weekend, so I was hosting. And then for my birthday itself, I had a house to myself, which I was very appreciative of, where I could just relax and gobble it out. I had junk food and cake and stouts for my birthday and played games with friends online. So it was great.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds like a really good time.
Yeah.
No, just your birthday. So you share a birthday with a family member of mine. And there's 4 birthdays, including mine, in this corridor here. So my weekend was all that stuff.
Okay.
It was.
Do you knock them all out at once, or do you guys do individual parties?
No. So it was 3 parties overall. I always throw mine onto somebody else's.
I see.
It's so close to Thanksgiving that it's I'm not going to force people to leave their houses.
You should power play it and make Thanksgiving also your birthday party every year.
It affects too many people. I mean,
what are you thankful for? Long stare.
Oh man. David, how about you? What you been up to?
Honestly, not a whole heck of a lot. Just been kind of getting ready. I leave for the parents' place for Thanksgiving on Saturday.
Nice.
And my car is currently in the shop, so just kind of keeping on.
Hopefully not for anything too huge.
Honestly, not bad. I was unfortunately rear-ended.
Oh no.
And it was a hit and run.
Ooh.
Geez, man.
So I tried to pursue them, but they got away. So
I'm really sorry that happened. That sucks.
Yeah, it's honestly it's not that big of a deal. But
I guess I'm just happy you're okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There's that one.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So that's honestly it's more just frustrating not having a car more than anything.
Yeah, especially there.
Is this going to push you into getting dash cams and stuff, or
probably not?
Word.
Because then there's evidence of what I do.
It's like gambler's fallacy. You shouldn't be rear-ended for a long time now, since it just happened.
That's actually not a bad idea.
You're reverse due.
Dennis, how about you? What's going on?
Not too much. I in the tradition of shoehorning video game type things into the non-video game segment. I am officially building a PC for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And because I mean this is Jen going way above and beyond because it's a lot more money than we would typically spend on each other in a year. But because deals are good right now, and because Jen was like, I don't want to fuck up the stuff I should purchase, and there's a lot of numbers and letters on all these things.
Yeah.
She's like, you just order it. Like you know, you get the stuff, get exactly what you want, and then we'll make that your Christmas present. Which is incredibly sweet and really cool. Except now I have a box with pretty much just a whole ass computer waiting to be assembled. That I now get to stare at for a month. Caress longingly as we podcast.
Yeah.
And that's going to be torture. I'm very excited for those who actually know, or this will mean anything too. I've got a RTX 3070,
Cool.
Intel i7 processor, and then 32 gigs of RAM to go with all that.
Oh, that's a nice beefy system.
It is, and had a friend who like his fun time activity is just designing PCs. So he'd like, oh, you're thinking about buying a PC? Let me here's everything. Here's where it's the best price. Here's all that stuff. So,
that's the huge thing, knowing where the best price is. Yeah.
So I'm very happy with it. It is definitely going to be a big step up in terms of PC stuff for me.
For sure.
And has officially knocked me out of the running for a PS5 / PSVR 2 combo. So I feel like nails in the coffin for caring about PlayStation.
Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff ends up coming over to PC anyway eventually now. So like,
that's a big factor in it. Like, I can't wait to play God of War Ragnarok. Probably will be on PC now.
Yeah, probably in about 6 months. Also, have you built?
I can recognize patterns.
Have you built a PC before?
Not to this level. I have swapped out a graphics card, and then I swapped out a motherboard and processor and RAM.
It's like high stakes Legos.
Yeah, really. This will be my first time using thermal paste.
Yeah.
Remember to hack naked.
I thought just one way too small pair of tidy whities was the standard.
Yeah, that works.
Either naked or full Intel clean suit.
Yeah. Yeah. I read somewhere I should just walk across a carpet rubbing my socks with every step before I touch my stuff. Seems like the right plan.
Yeah. It's everything. You can do anything with YouTube now. I don't know how I learned how to do it back when I was a teenager. I don't know why my family ever trusted me to do it. Yeah, there we are.
It helps. I have neighbors that are like big PC geeks as well, and so I don't think I'll be allowed to assemble this on my own. They will kick down my door to observe.
It's like a barn raising.
Yep. So yeah, I get to oogle these parts for the next while, and then Christmas will be adult Legos, like you described, Ben.
Neat. Well, congratulations, and good luck on having the patience to get around to that.
Good luck on not fucking it up.
I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but
that's the part I'm worried about. That's the part I would like good luck for, please.
It's like the only thing that is tough, like thermal paste and getting the CPU down like that is the high stakes part of it. That where it can kind of feel like you're like, oh, am I going to use too much pressure? Am I going to use too much paste or whatever? But like everything else, there's kind of not a wrong place to put stuff, And like the only difficult thing for me, I got kind of a fancy case, and so power cable routing ended up being a bit of a problem. But like, I don't know, I eventually got it. So.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm planning on using my old case So I feel like that ups it, because then it's like, all right, well, once you start this, you can't be like, all right, screw it for today. I'll just play on my old machine and
you're burning the ships on the far shore. Yeah,
yeah, and that way, you keep the same machine soul.
Correct.
and you save yourself probably about $100. So
Yep. And it's like R2D2 and C3PO in Star Wars. You just don't spend enough time in the same shell, and you start to develop quirks.
Well, this might be one of our shortest banters ever, at least with the four of us. So I think we should keep it short and do a regular kind of show, what with the grind, the multiplayer, and the end boss. And why don't we get started with The Grind. The Grind, where we talk about the games we have been playing over the past period of time or so. Ben, I want to hear what you have been playing.
All right, I got 3 new games. We have a windfall this week. So a new game came out in the past week that I've been anticipating for a while, about a father sort of story, and I'm talking about Somerville, of course.
Cool.
This is a game that I don't think was particularly well advertised. Like, I had to dig to figure out the release date for it. For the longest time, the release date was just 2022. This is a game, it's made by Jump Ship Games, which is, I think, technically in England. But the executive producer on it is, I think it's Dino Paddy or Paddy Dino. I can't remember which. But he's one of the people who is not the director, but like one of the art directors of Limbo and Inside. So not Art Gent. I think that's like the main director of those games. But this person was played a significant role in those games, but then left the studio and joined Jump Ship Studios.
That is a unfortunate name for someone.
Jump Ship Studios.
One place to go to the other. Jump Ship, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the joke of it is probably people jump ship to go there, but
yes.
It's one of those don't be evil things, and then once you scale up, and then
then it's going to be trouble.
Yeah. Anyway, so this game, it's a relatively small studio though that made the game. The advertising for it again was pretty minimal. They had like a teaser trailer out for like maybe a year or two before this. And I had been following their Twitter, and they'd been posting like pictures of the game like every workday in October. So and since the release date was supposed to be 2022, I assumed that it was going to come out pretty soon. And it ended up coming out just yesterday, November 14th, at the time we're recording. But they announced the release date, I think, October 28th, something like that. So they only announced it 2 weeks before releasing it.
Wow.
So I had a lot of hype for this game. Like, aesthetically, it looks pretty similar to Inside. The main difference is you're going left in this game instead of going right.
Okay.
It kind of like
completely different.
Yeah, exactly. The games go different directions. It's aesthetically, it looks like a little bit of an advancement over Inside. Instead of it being like abstract, like having like blank faces or whatever for the people, like there is like a more definite art style to the people, and it is more stylized, where they're more kind of like stick figure-ish, but the animations are more expressive. I've played about maybe 4 or 5 hours of this, and I think I'm halfway through the game. I'll just give like kind of a blunt feeling of it is I think this game has extremely good presentation and good art style that's similar to Limbo and Inside. I think the gameplay is a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot worse than those other 2 games. It is a little bit clunky in terms of the gameplay, where things like it's not always clear what things you can climb on and not climb on. They give you like this mechanic where there's kind of like dynamic platforming. I don't want to give too much away that you can do, but even that's clunky and unresponsive and doesn't work all the time. There's kind of small bugs like on a given level, if you stand in a certain spot, you might cut out the soundtrack. So there's it. The gameplay wise, it suffers a whole bunch in a lot of different areas. The puzzles themselves are okay. They're not too bad. But just like getting around the space is a little bit worse. One decision they made in this game over Limbo and Inside is it's a 3-dimensional environment. You're not just going, left or right on a rail. Some scenes you are. Sometimes it'll be do like a Mario Paint type thing where it'll be in a certain area you're strictly just moving in on a 2D plane, more or less. But in other cases, you have the full range of movement. But the problem with this is it's not always telegraphed when you should be walking towards the camera or away from the camera, or if you even can. So it's something where it feels like they probably needed to do a lot more play testing with it, just to make sure that some of those kinks were ironed out, and then maybe do something more with trying to limit how you're moving around the environment, or limit the environment more so it's not as cumbersome. I'll give you an example. There's a couple of scenes in the game where you're being chased by something. It could be a light or something, and so the speed of the player will be slightly faster than the thing chasing, which is good. But there's things where it's if you're not going directly in the direction they want you to, you'll get outpaced, even if you're holding directly left and you're running left, that sort of thing.
Weird.
So things like that are kind of detract from the play experience, especially when it causes you to have to restart a checkpoint, and things like that can kind of take you out of the immersion. Whereas for some reason that doesn't really happen in Inside, because you just enjoy a sweet death scene that looks fun and then you go at it again. I don't know why there's a difference in the immersion break there, I guess. But again, I do want to speak highly of the presentation and the art style. The narrative isn't as strong as the previous games, and honestly, it's probably not fair to compare a game that's a first for the studio to Inside and Limbo, since those are two very, very strong games.
Right.
But they kind of are in the unfortunate position of doing that, since it's a game of a very similar style, and it's the art director who's from those previous games.
Like it or not, this is still being spoken of in the press as a spiritual successor to those. So the comparison is going to be made.
Yeah, I mean, it's like someone jumped ship or something.
That's you kind of bring up another problem, Kole, where it's if they advertise the game this way as well, then that's kind of sets those expectations up as well.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, some of the presentation's very, very good and enjoyable, and the narrative elements that are there are interesting. It's just it's not as dense as something like Inside or Limbo. Whereas thinking of Limbo, for example, scenes like the spider or the bug that's in your head or whatever, there's kind of a dense amount of these what the fuck is going on here type moments or whatever, that are just kind of packed wall to wall. And this one, it's there's a couple things that are kind of fucked up, but then there's a lot of nothing that happens in the middle of the game. So there's definitely good ideas in the game. I don't want to detract from it. But yeah, overall, it doesn't kind of reach the same peaks of the other games. I think I'm going to try and beat the game and continue on and do it. It does have a lot of similar DNA of the other games in terms of the types of puzzles you do. It's just gameplay wise, it's just a less polished version. So
right. That's a shame. That level of slop, especially when it is a cinematic platformer, and you live in that feel so much.
I mean, it's I don't. It's tough because it's it's a smaller studio, so I'm not expecting the best, I guess. And I still think it's this might be worth your time, but maybe if it's on sale and it's $5 or $10 instead of $20, in my opinion. But yeah, that's kind of where I land on it. But yeah, is the tone kind of aiming for a pseudo horror kind of feel like the others are, or is it? It's not as much horror, but more kind of science fiction-y. I don't want to give too much away from the story, because that is something I want people to experience if they play it. It's more just strange and science fiction-y, and you're not given a whole lot of information, so it's kind of adventure-y. If I had to compare it to a movie, I would compare it to War of the Worlds a little bit, but it's not exactly that, but it's a similar type of adventure, I would say. Yeah. So not aliens per se, but a disruptive force. So
right.
Yeah. So that's that game. I think I'm going to move on unless there's any other questions. All right. The other game that I played this week is another game that came out this last week. Is also about a dad, and that's God of War Ragnarok. But this one's also about a son as well. I'm just going to quick take. I've probably put like 5 to 10 hours into this.
Okay.
It's a God of War-esque God of War game. It's good. It's an enjoyable experience. It's very similar to the 2018 one, where it is a Uncharted version of God of War. It is very well put together. It's enjoyable. There's not as much novelty to this game if you've played the 2018 version, because it's kind of doing the same thing. It looks beautiful, though. I'm going to keep playing it to the end, but I would say it's nothing earth-shattering. There are some good narrative things they do early on where they're setting up like themes of the game that you can kind of see. Has everyone played the 2018 version of God of War?
I have not.
All right. Well, and then I won't say any more about narrative things of God of War. But yeah, nothing like too hot or cold here. I think this game got like a 10 out of 10 on IGN, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's fine. Like, I think the 2018 one should have definitely got a 10 out of 10 since it was all like original at that time, you know. This one I would I mean, we'll see how it goes because I'm pretty early into it. But if the rest of the game goes the way that the first like 5 to 10 hours go, I would give it like a 9 out of 10 or something like that. It's in a similar situation that Subnautica expansion was, where it's like, yeah, this is a great game, and you're giving me more content in the same vein of what the original game was. But this doesn't have the same sort of novelty that the first experience did. Right. It's still good, so it's kind of like a kind of mixed feeling on it. Like, you don't want to say it's a bad game because it's extremely well put together game. It's just that you've gone on that ride before. It's like, that's a good analogy. It's like a roller coaster that you've ridden before, where it's like, yeah, this is fun, but we've done it once.
How much do we prize that novelty over?
Yeah, and there's far worse games that you could play than this one. So I mean, if you can only pick like 1 or 2 games to play a year or something like that, should probably be a strong contender for it. Just because of how beautiful the presentation is and how frictionless of an experience it is. So
my question is, because the thing that I have seen, kind of take the forefront in the narrative of people talking about this, is that it is real handholdy. Insofar as whenever you are trying to do something, somebody is shouting at you what to do, like precisely step by step.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Isn't that fathering?
But it's reversed. You are Kratos, and your kid is yelling at you the entire time. But it does do that, and I did notice that. I would argue that the 2018 one did that as well, but there is probably more sparse in that one than this one. But honestly, I don't care. It's like, if you're playing this for like the puzzles and the joy of solving puzzles, I don't think this is exactly the game for that. I mean, the puzzles are good and stuff, and yeah, you can kind of like metagame too, where it's like, if there's like 4 options for the height of where an elevator can go, you can just go through them and wait until your kid's like, yeah, that looks right. And they're like, all right, cool, let's do that. But that's not like, I don't see that as a huge detractor to the game. Again, like, I would state that the lack of originality is more of a detractor than that. For me at least. But it is a somewhat valid thing to bring up, though. There's probably a setting in the game, I haven't checked, but there's probably a setting to turn off hints like that, I would guess. But
last I saw, there wasn't a way to do it, but I also, kind of fell from the kind of fell, a little bit from the discussion here as other stuff has come out.
They do the same thing that the Uncharted games do, where they did this in the 2018 version, where it's like, if you're like riding around in a boat, you're having a conversation, but then if you hop off at like a kind of like point of interest or whatever, like, let's talk about that later. And then like
I do love that games have started incorporating, instead of just the conversation starts and stops, being like, so anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so natural. It worked exactly for one game, and then every game after that's like, yeah, this is terrible. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about the game than that. It's God of War game. If you played 2018 one, it's a pretty similar experience, and that's a good thing. It's a fun game. So
nice.
I think the last game that I have is probably the one that I'm most excited to talk about, and that is Returnal. I think I'm going in reverse chronological order in how I play these games. But so Returnal is what I was playing last week. This is a game, I think it's a PlayStation exclusive. This is like, a best way to describe it is it is if Slay the Spire was a shooting game, and instead of the cards, it's like the mods for your weapons, and it's in an alien aesthetic. So it's very Geiger influenced art.
Is this the one that looks sort of like Prey?
No.
I mean, so some of the key art might. Yeah.
I guess I haven't played Prey past the introduction. So if Prey goes more alien-y, then yes.
Just I guess the idea of like the future is that everyone looks like a scientist in a biohazard suit.
You see one human in this game,
right?
So no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Had you played Returnal before? I thought that was one that you got with your PlayStation 5.
No, I had not played this before. Maybe this is where it's coming in. I had played this at a friend's house like 2 years ago, maybe. And I had maybe done like 1 or 2 runs of it, but I hadn't played it from the beginning since I was playing it on somebody else's. And so I'd only done a few runs. So it's like, okay, that looks interesting. But then I like went off and did other things, and there was a couple of years in between there where I didn't have a PS5. So yeah, so I decided to go back to it. The thing that I was probably most impressed of this go around and playing it from the beginning is the art style and kind of like how diegetic everything is. Coming off the heels of Scorn, of watching you play Scorn, I thought it was a very good implementation of that. It's not as art heavy as Scorn is, but they still do a really good job. It's basically like the Alien universe is kind of what you can think of this as. There's not a xenomorph, but otherwise everything's kind of there.
There's plenty of creepy crawlies. I mean,
yeah, for sure. So the premise of this game is like you crash. You're a space pilot, and I forget the main character's name.
That's a good.
It's not Celeste, but I forget. Anyway, you crash land on a planet. You have a pistol. You start wandering through. It's like a jungle environment. Eventually, you die, and then you wake back up at the ship. Oh no, it's a death loop thing, just like all the movie tropes. And so that's basically the premise of the game: is you find that you're stuck in a death loop. You're trying to make progression through this. The thing that's interesting about the game and the narrative is that the map changes as you go through. So basically there's defined levels or areas, but they're all in different orders and they're all stitched together differently. So on a given run, you're basically doing a random run through of these different maps, and you can kind of go as far as you want. There's basically different branches where you can kind of make a turn here, and I say, okay, I want to fight this boss, so I'm going to go down this branch because this has like a red door entrance, and that always leads to this boss. Or I'm going to go down this elevator because this leads to this other biome, and then I want to fight things there, something like that. You start to kind of see the pattern of how you can do runs and start to do that. But on a given room, basically, it's either similar to Slay the Spire. It's either like a chance room or it's a combat room. In combat room, you just have a room of monsters that you kill. Sometimes there might be bosses. Sometimes there might be like mechanics, like there's like a shield in the back corner that's like giving a bunch of health to people. So you need to destroy that first before you destroy other people. Other times there's mechanics like, there's turrets in certain positions, so you kind of have to navigate it differently. The feel of this game is great. You basically have a sprint button. It feels like you can traverse the map very quickly. You have a like rocket Samus type jump that you can do, and then you have a single button that'll like wave dash you in any direction when you press circle. And those are the main movement mechanics. But you get a lot out of that. You have like some very good dodging from that and very good like feeling of traversal in that. When it comes to the combat, the main thing that they have is when you're shooting things, your guns have 2 states based on how hard you're pulling the trigger. So when you half press the trigger, that's your normal like fire, where you can just unload on an enemy. And then there's an active reload that allows you to reload quicker. Same thing as like Gears of War. if you full press in the button, then you have the secondary fire of the weapon, which is random weapon to weapon. It could be something like it'll shoot 10 homing bullets that'll hit the person, or it could be something like electricity, like you Darth Sidious them. But whatever your secondary fire is, it has a cooldown, and they implement it really interestingly, where there's this sound that will go higher and higher in pitch, and then it'll make like a snapping sound when it's ready again. And if you have your gun fully pressed in, like you're about to do your secondary fire, it'll be very loud so that you can see exactly where it's at. But even if you don't have it pressed in, there's like a very low volume of it happening in the background. So if you pay attention, you can hear it, even if you're not like have it ready to go. Yeah, and so between those two things, you get a lot of mileage out of that in terms of like what you're doing with combat, and kind of like how you're managing the enemies. For the most part, you're trying to, you can go in with a bang, get your secondary off, and then like try and active reload and like fire as best you can to kind of manage people. And the more like competent you get with the game, the more that you're good with getting very close proximity with the bad guys, because you know exactly when you're going to kill them, you know kind of where their weak spots are, you know what their moveset is. And the reason why you want to get close to them is when any creature dies, it'll drop gold that you'll use to buy other things in other rooms. And that has like a timer that it will vanish in. So you want to try and kill them and collect the gold as quickly as possible and then move on to the next person. Not just you're punished if you just shoot everyone from afar and then don't get close at all monetarily. So like you don't collect any money if you do that.
Yeah.
Does it have a justification for that, or is it just the Nintendo, like, the gold starts flashing and then disappears?
Yeah, I suppose that part's not too diegetic, is it? So that part is a gamey part of it, for sure. The part of the map, like, rearranging itself is, like, the idea is, like, the place that you're at kind of, like, has its own consciousness, and it's constantly, like, rearranging itself. And then, okay, so anyway, you get this money. There's another meta mechanic that you have too, where if you don't take a hit from anyone, if you don't take any damage, and as you kill people, you will level up. I forget what the mechanic's called. It's like your adrenaline meter, I believe is what it's called. And it goes like 1 to 5. And as that increases with each tier, you get some sort of like buff. And it could be like your movement slightly faster, you do slightly more damage, you can have a higher radius to collect gold or whatever. But basically the way it differentiates is if you're at adrenaline level 5, like you feel like a pretty big badass. Like it's much more smooth sailing, like killing everyone. In addition to that, there's like random health on the level. It's not dropped by enemies, but it's level dependent. So like on this given map, there's going to be 2 health packs, like one in this location and another in this location. And the individual levels are pretty deterministic as far as the layout of like where chests are and where like health is and stuff like that, and where the enemies are. The thing with the health mechanic is if you have full health and you pick up a health bar, it basically fills up a meter that will extend your health of what your max health can be. Whereas if you're damaged, it just refills your health, but you don't get this like longer progression with it.
Yeah.
So basically all of these mechanics working together makes it so that once you've mastered an area and once you're like killing everything, picking up the gold and not taking any hits, the game becomes a lot easier to dominate than if you're, like the first time through, you're getting hit every other shot and that sort of thing. So that's kind of, and I think that kind of like goes into what the criticism that a lot of people have of this game is that this game takes a long time to play and it is hard to master and kind of punishing.
Well,
And
at least when it first came out, there were not easy breaking points.
Yeah.
Even now, like there are now, as of when I last played this last year, I think it was, we did it for Bonfireside Chat because there's some Dark Souls DNA there. Like the actual runs that you end up doing, like take a pretty long time, and you're doing and like you're going into like particular biomes, so it's like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And like any one of those, I found like I never got past the first one because I couldn't get through the boss because the iteration loop was 50 minutes. But like, 50 minutes to get to the first boss to try it.
Yeah.
And you might die on the on the boss's last little bit of health, and then you got to do the 50 minutes.
Do you?
Yeah. I just for me, roguelikes are really tough to hack, and playing Returnal actually helped me figure that, because I really need to feel like I'm making progress. And that is a like, there are some that I can do, but like that is the axis on which a roguelike feels. Like why Monster Train feels really good to me, but Returnal feels like I am running on some kind of quicksand treadmill.
Yeah, the comparison to Dark Souls I think is apt because it's relying on a similar mechanic where the knowledge of how the game works is how you get the edge on the game. It's not a in-game unlockable sort of thing. They do have like game-to-game economy. It's like I think they're called artifacts. Maybe I can't remember if that's what they're called.
It's relatively minor.
Yes, yeah, So with this so there's one economy that you get per your run. So you pick up this token, you can use it on like a locked door or something and get some sort of upgrade. Cool. When you die, those are all gone. But there's another economy where if you pick it up, it carries over run to run, and you can use that to do things like clean unlockable or something to pick up. And by that, what I mean is like some of the items that you can pick up, they're like covered in this like purple film, and the idea is like if you pick it up, you have a high chance of becoming I forget what the term
so
for
it's
it is.
like corrupted or something like that.
And it basically gives you a negative attribute, and you have a like mini game sort of thing, or a mini like a some sort of goal you need to achieve to take that away from you. So it could be like 6 melee kills or kill 2 enemies at the same time, stuff like that. So yeah, that's one mechanic in the game. There's also a mechanic with parasites where it's and similar, where it's like it gives you a negative, permanent negative thing for a slightly positive thing, and you have to decide if that's a good deal or not. But yeah, to your point, so I got past the first boss battle and I got to the second biome. I don't know exactly how many biomes there are, and I don't want to know. But it is tough. It took me a long time to just master the first boss and be able to get to the second biome. But I felt very, very accomplished after doing that. And you basically have to get to the point where you have to memorize the boss's moveset, know exactly what they're going to do. And then once you get to that point, it's not terribly hard. Like the moves, you know how to escape them and stuff, and you do feel like kind of like a badass. Like, I can escape your melee every time you like rush over to try and swing at me because I know how to do that. So yeah, and then there is some permanent progression in the game, at least narratively, through like logs you unlock. You can tell that it's like a Metroid-esque game too, because like staring at your face when at the start of every run, there's a door that's at a high point, and there's a shiny yellow thing, and it's like, well, I can't get there yet, but eventually I should be able to. And that sort of shiny yellow thing's on a lot of the different maps in the first biome. The thing that you unlock after killing the first boss is just a key to get you to the second biome. So I don't think it's any like game mechanic or something like that. There's other things that you can tell are unlockable, like swimming, for example. There's different like water levels that have like water elements to it with things underneath the water, but you drown if you jump in it. So I assume that that's an unlockable. There's levels that have lava in it and stuff like that. So I assume that there's a way to deal with that, similar to Dark Souls, like at some point. But all that said, the runs can be like frustrating, they can be rewarding, that sort of thing. But the narrative package that they're in the presentation, I think, is very, very cool. Where I feel like I'm in like this like alien world, and has kind of like a Dead Space like space craziness type psychosis type thing going on as well, or kind of has that bent.
There's really cool story stuff that happens in the game, and like it reveals itself pretty quickly, like a little bit of what's going on. They do a very good job of making the mystery tantalizing, right?
Yeah. and they basically like leave breadcrumbs for you as you progress through the game of like small tastes of like what might be happening or what might be going on.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I like the game. I want to keep playing it. I need to find time to play it, or set aside time to play it though, because it is a time investment, as they say. But
So it sounds like this is more of a, in terms of time loop stuff, this is more like a death loop type thing where you're actually progressing the story and kind of that sort of thing, as opposed to like a Binding of Isaac where it's just about getting one perfect run.
I would say it's probably more like Binding of Isaac from how you described it, at least in the sense of you're trying to get lucky on a run and get like a lot of things going for you. And a lot of times it's kind of like luck of the dice. Again, once you get more competent, it becomes more frictionless because you're picking up all the gold, you're not getting hit, so you're getting like a high adrenaline level and stuff like that. But yeah, it when I start a run right now, I am not significantly further than when I started the game for the first time. Yeah, except for the knowledge that I have. So,
there is story to find here, which is what makes it a little bit different. And doing really well in a particular run increases the odds that you're going to run into that cool stuff, or make significant progress towards, unlocking the further the further stages, right?
Yeah. So I don't want an answer to this, but one thing that I'm curious about is like in the second biome, obviously the people are a lot harder and stuff, and it could be because I don't know their moveset yet. But I'm curious if I rush to the second biome, if they scale with my level, or if I am encouraged to like clear out the first biome first and then move on to the second. Because if that's the case, then that makes the game even more brutal because that's just like so much more time for each run to make it successful. So.
I don't have an answer to that question.
In
other roguelikes that are kind of segmented by stage like that, they say like, oh yeah, the shortcut is a trap because you want all of the drops that you're going to get along the way. Yeah. But that's also not really the way that Returnal works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's I don't dislike the game, or I don't have that sort of criticism against it with like the time involvement of it, because it's kind of on its own terms, and I respect that the game's like kind of being self-consistent, and they're making you play on the field that they created. So
don't read my negativity and my poor experience with it as like reflecting on the good time you're having with it, Ben.
So I'm curious, Kole, what did you think of the aesthetic, especially compared to like Scorn? And this doesn't have the weirder like body horror part of it, but it does have like that alien type aesthetic to it. So what did you think of it?
The weird body horror is pretty important to me in terms of the this kind of Giger Beksinski kind of aesthetic kind of deal. I think it's a real pretty game. I think that it suffers a little bit from being a game that came out pretty close to the PlayStation 5 launch window, because it gets real into the particle effects. Like everything is kind of like a spray of floating motes of light. To a degree, I would prefer a little bit more discretion in how those are used. But like,
then how will you know it's next gen?
But like the art direction, like the actual worlds and the enemies look really cool. Like you can go into the codex and take a closer look at them. Like it is definitely a very good looking game, and it passes one of those tests, which is you can tell you're looking at a screenshot of it. Like, oh, I know what that is. This is not generic. It has an identity of its own. Because it has these things in a positive way, because it has those things working towards it. Right.
Yeah.
As a side note, I think that actually might have been some of what I was seeing with, kind of associating with Prey is, that, I don't know, what I associate with like super futuristic look with the light sprays and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't associate that with Prey very much at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I was kind of like, brr.
That's all I got. I've talked long enough. Those are all the games I've played. They're all pretty cool, except for Somerville.
I mean,
Aww.
big stuff, recent releases here on the show. We're going to keep the recent releases train going. Hey, David, what you been playing?
Yeah, so a bunch of things that came out on, or I guess at least one thing that came out on Game Pass. I have started playing Signalis. Have you heard of this at all?
I believe I'm going to be streaming Signalis this weekend because it is a new survival horror game, and I've heard nothing but rave reviews.
Yeah, it's really interesting because my understanding is it's very much based on kind of a continuation of the early Resident Evil and Silent Hill games.
Yeah.
And I very notably have never played any of those. So I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see. I'm definitely going to try to catch that stream because I'm going to be interested to see how someone who's played this stuff before it hits on.
Okay.
So what I've got so far is it's, this futuristic, kind of horror setting where you're some sort of replicant, which appears to be a robot. It's not completely clear, at least to me so far, whether you're a lab-grown human or it's just straight up an android. And you are searching for a woman, and that's basically yes. That's basically all you get at the start. It's very much seems to be about figuring out exactly what's going on. And you're exploring this setting. You very quickly learn that this appears to take place in some sort of fascist state, and where in what appears to be some sort of penal colony or something, and bad stuff is happening, and there are monsters that want to eat you, and survival horror ensues. So far, really interesting. It pulls in some Lovecraftian elements. I'm not sure where it's going with some of that, but most of it seems like it's kind of item puzzles. A lot of find the thing and bring it to a different place, or figure out where the combination to this safe is written. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's a good stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, my understanding is that's very classic, early survival horror. It's got some interesting aesthetic things. From what I can tell, at least so far, all of the replicants, there's various classes of them that apparently, all have different roles. They all appear to be, female. But probably the weirdest thing that I'm not sure if it's going anywhere, if it's just, game being weird, is the ones that are basically the security models, which you are not, because, it wouldn't be survival horror if, you could just kill everything. Basically, you come up to about their waist, but then their torso is about the same size, normal size, the same as yours. So it's got this really weird, kind of the exaggerated, Barbie legs almost, if that makes sense.
Okay. I wonder what kind of combat advantage that gives them.
I have no idea. I don't know. It's one of those things I'm pretty early on, and it's not clear to me where it's going, because there's most of it so far seems to be kind of a sci-fi type horror, like a Dead Space or Aliens or something like that. But then there's some stuff like that that's like is this going to get into just kind of messing with you body horror stuff? And then there's a couple of elements that appear to imply some like Lovecraftian elements.
Yeah. I mean, unpredictability is good in horror.
Oh, yeah. There's something I haven't figured out yet, that one of your screens is, on your status screen, there's basically this, like 4-axis chart that it's like volatility, fragmentation, something else. And when you take damage, it, the dot that's normally right in, balanced in the middle, kind of wanders around to, various
Oh, that's cool.
locations.
So there's different kinds of damage that you can take.
Well, it's not clear to me if that's what it means, or some of the terms they use, I forget exactly what they are, but they almost imply kind of like a psychological profile type of thing or something.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So is it like a sanity meter kind of deal?
Yeah, if it's that, or if it's my understanding is some of the old survival horror games would kind of do like a kind of an amateur psychoanalysis to determine what ending you got.
Yeah, that was like a Silent Hill 2 thing, is what it did, kind of measuring your recklessness or attachment.
How long you stare at that knife?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I have no idea where it's going with that, but that's a thing that seems like it'll be interesting. So
yeah. What's the combat like?
So that is I would say the one thing that I'm a little mixed on, but I think I'm gonna be interested to hear from you. I think this is very much it's survival horror style.
Okay.
So you have a lock on, with your gun, and as far as I can tell, you more or less just auto aim. But then there's sort of a square over your enemy, and as you keep your aim on them, it gets smaller, and apparently the smaller it is, the more damage you do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is nutmegging by like running through their legs, is that a viable strategy in this game?
No, it is not. So that actually gets to one of the things I find frustrating is enemies can't follow you through doors. However, their patrol routes happen in real time even when you're not on the screen. And running into an enemy is enough to take damage. So I'll periodically walk into a room and just face plant into an enemy and take damage, which seems kind of crap.
Yeah.
Some of the people I've talked to, it sounds like they said that's kind of the way things worked in some of the early Resident Evils and stuff like that. Is that accurate?
I mean, it's not simulating the movement of where they're at. Usually they started in the same positions when the screen reloaded.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, weirdly, what you're describing sounds more like Resident Evil Outbreak to me. But that was a product of the load times more than anything. And also, because that was a multiplayer game, it was simulating stuff. So you would load in, and then just immediately something would be right on top of you attacking. And being attacked by a zombie in Outbreak was a really bad, it was worse than in the, main games.
Right. And I don't want to overstate this because, it's not something, you seem to be able to take a fair amount of hits, stuff like that, and that doesn't happen real often. It seems like more the way this gameplay mechanic seems to play out more often is the fact that, one, if something's chasing you and you dash through a door, and then dash right back, because it's still in the process of chasing you, it's still going to basically be right behind, right there.
Yeah, you need to give him a moment. Yeah.
And then also there's a sort of a little bit more of a, I don't know, higher dimensional thinking you need to do with the stealth elements, because, there's a lot of situations where you don't want to go through the doorway until you've given enough time for the enemy in that room to advance on its patrol route.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the enemy in the room you're in is going on a patrol route.
Right.
So, you have to figure out, will you have enough time to stand next to the door waiting to go through to, not get caught by the other one, kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Seems like very stressful gameplay.
Yeah. Although I will say, the stealth is fairly forgiving, and so this is also a game. Apparently, enemies don't stay dead until I guess later in the game you get some sort of limited ability to make certain that specific enemies choose that you want them to just never respawn.
Yeah, that's more similar to like that is a thing from the Resident Evil remake.
Okay.
Except when they would come back, they would come back as tougher enemies, tougher versions of the zombies. Yeah,
and it doesn't do that. However, I've from stuff I've read online, because I looked up to be like how cautious should I be with ammo, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is apparently not only will they like respawn when you're off doing things, but like if you stand next to the body, they'll still respawn.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
From what I've read, it sounds like you have to be reasonably cautious with conserving your ammo and healing items. However, it also sounds like it's a game where basically the only time you'd quote unquote have to engage in combat is if it's a thing where it's like, oh, this is a narrow hallway and the enemy's like in my way.
Yeah.
Other than that, it seems like the default is either stealth or run.
Mm-hmm. This is sounding, kind of textbook survival horror in a way that is making me very excited to
it sounds really good. It looks really good. There's a number of interesting kind of first person sort of investigation sections, looking at computer consoles and things like that, which are kind of cool. Change of pace. There's a lot of world building and figuring out what the world you're in is like.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the weirdest mechanic, but is just kind of a fun like, I see what you're doing, is in this dystopian kind of penal colony. One of the prison or whatever it is rules is that personal property is a privilege, and no resident is allowed carrying more than 6 things at a time, which is their excuse for your inventory system.
Okay, yeah.
Which is weird because like you're someone who's coming there and like shooting up things, so like why you're paying attention to the rules is not actually explained, but
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, so I think you're going to like it. There's a lot of weird things. I like if you go into the save menu and then choose not to save, a message just pops up, you will regret this.
like the Sim City tooltip. Yeah, nice.
So I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. Like I said, I'm really interested to see what what you think, because there's a lot of things I like about it. I like its, visual presentation, that sort of thing. And I'm interested to see how much of that is just me never being exposed to this before, so it's very new to me,
Right.
versus, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, based on what you're saying, it sounds like it's pretty, it sounds like it is a good reflection and updating of, older survival horror stuff. So, yeah, I got no questions because I kind of just want to go in knowing what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So, other than that, I picked up a game called Kenshi.
I'm curious about this.
Kenshi. Yeah, have you heard of this before or anything?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this has been recommended a couple of times. It's hard to tell if this is an action game or like an RTS. Maybe a little bit of both.
So I would compare it. I would say it's a survival craft game, except that, depending. So there's a whole bunch of different starting scenarios. That can be like, one of them is like the default one. The one I'm doing is called like Guy with a Sword, where you're just, you start out as a single dude with a sword and some really basic armor. But there's other ones that are like, you start out as like a pair of slaves, or you start out as a guy with a dog, or even you start out with a village. And so there's a, kind of like a survival craft game, there's a base building mechanic and a, economy building mechanic. But the interesting thing is that you can, have squads of different enemy or different characters. And even if you start with like the guy with a sword, where you start with a quote unquote, or, what would seem to be a main character, there's absolutely nothing special about that character.
Mm-hmm.
I could, go to a bar, recruit an NPC, and then, have that be the character I play as, and assign my starting character to like running a machine back at the base if I wanted to.
So it's like, oh my gosh, State of Decay in that way. Yeah.
Like very much like that. Although I would say the biggest difference is you can, control a squad kind of pseudo real-time strategy style.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has, pretty significant RPG elements, mostly in not so much in terms of like experience and levels, but more of the, as you do things, you get better at them.
Mm-hmm.
But this gets into the kind of the other big thing about the game, is that it's one of these games that simultaneously, is very, very in-depth rules, and, really, goes often to a ridiculous degree for realism, but at the same time in a very, I want to say Eurojank, although I don't know if this is a European game.
I mean, I was just going to say, you can say jank. Like, you can call it.
Yeah.
Like, when you go look at screenshots of this, you can kind of get a sense for what the fit and finish on this is. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I'm actually going to come back to that. But yeah, so a lot of these skills, it's things where like the way you train your strength skill is either equipping a heavy, a very heavy weapon, two-handed sword, and fighting with it. Or the more common thing is if you just are running around the map with over encumbered, or while carrying a body, you'll level up strength.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, you have a melee defense skill, which is basically your blocking, and a dodge skill. And if you're using unarmed combat, you'll be basically directly training your dodge skill because you can't really block a sword with your hands. However,
not with that attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, coming back to that. However, if you are using a weapon, you only use your dodge skill if you get knocked off, off balance, and so can't block, and you'll have to kind of try to dodge as the last ditch effort. Similarly, unarmed combat, which is actually what I'm working on building my character up in right now. At the start of the game, when you attack, you'll actually take damage because you're punching people wearing like metal armor and stuff. And so you basically, as you get better at martial arts and then also increase your toughness, which is basically your constitution, you'll have less and less chance of taking damage when you attack. So just really, arbitrarily complex. There's also things, apparently the stealth system, takes into account, whether you're in light or darkness. If you are in darkness and your opponent is in light, they'll be at more of a disadvantage to seeing you than if you're both in darkness, because it's easier to see into a lighted room from the dark than from what I mean.
Yeah.
So just my point being, like, there's a whole bunch of things of that's like just very arbitrarily complicated mechanics that are put in. In terms of the actual game, it basically takes place in a post-apocalyptic, mostly Japanese-inspired world. Everyone's running around with katanas and, ninja and samurai-style armor, things like that, except for, inexplicably, the Mesoamerican weapons that kind of the big paddle with obsidian shards around the edge. Like, those are a big thing. So I don't know on that one. But other than that, it's, very Japanese inspired. I like the fact that most of the thieves groups are kind of modeled on ninjas. And at least to me, to my headcanon, it comes across very much as like, almost like in New Vegas where you meet the Elvis impersonators.
Oh, yeah. So it's just they're kind of cargo culting it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, where these are like, these kind of thief punks that like, okay, yeah, of course they decided they're going to be ninjas.
Right.
The game is very, very sandboxy. There's no real goal or quest lines or anything like that. Bunch of different things you can do. Right now, I'm in the middle of drug running.
Okay.
So, go to the swamp and buy hashish and run it to the one of the major factions in this game is basically like religious fundamentalists.
Okay.
And, because it's, everything's super illegal there, there's a significant markup. So, that's why I'm making money. The other thing that's a really interesting kind of design decision that I've not seen other games really commit to this much is I'm playing as a female character, and the dominant religion is very misogynistic, and that actually comes up a lot in terms of just talking to the priests and getting these kind of creepy sermons about how women are naturally tempt men and with their feminine wiles and stuff like that. To like, I stumbled into basically a camp that's kind of the rebels against this religion, and because I was a woman, it would, they pretty much took my word for it, where I'm like, yeah, those people suck, like, I'm not with them. Whereas apparently, I looked up, if I'd been playing as a male character, they would have been much less trusting. So it's interesting. I've found it being fairly fairly interesting, fairly impacting. Probably the weirdest thing is just every time you enter a city or walk past one of these guys, they refer to oh, hello, beloved sister, that sort of thing, and that starts to really, really grate in a way I wouldn't have expected.
Well, I mean, character barks, they're always gonna,
yeah. So, so that's interesting. I've been enjoying just all the things you've, do to kind of semi break the game, or which is, kind of becomes the point of the game. So, like, to train my. So basically, early on, I allied with the, one of the ninja thief groups, and that allowed me to train up my stealth skills. And so you get an ability where you can basically knock out an enemy. Okay. And so in order to train unarmed combat, which, obviously, until you're really good, doesn't work that well. My strategy is basically knock out an enemy, carry them to the middle of nowhere, strip them naked, and then wait for them to wake up and fight them.
That's one way to do it. Yeah.
Gotta dehumanize them before you dehumanize them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently that's like one of the less horrifying things, because apparently the optimal strategy is to basically remove their legs so they can just crawl around while you're beating on them.
Well, that's just cruel is what it is.
Yeah.
Why was I programmed to feel pain?
So yeah, there's it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, very janky, but that's kind of some of the appeal. Oh, also, one of the things that kind of has a soft spot in my heart for is the first time I heard about this game, I was actually in like high school.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's been working. It's been in progress for a very, very long time.
Right. I think it's a single developer, and I want to say I found it on something that was like Steam before Steam was a thing. Like, I forget what it was. It might have even been like Drive-Thru RPG or something. Like something just really out there in terms of like someone trying to sell a game online.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting because I kind of, wrote it off as like, wow, this looks really janky. Like, all right. And then years later, saw people doing Let's Plays of it, that sort of thing. Yeah. Apparently the guy's now working on a sequel, which I'm actually pretty excited for because, it very much is one of these games that it's a good, it's a game with merit. It's not exactly a good game, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping maybe with more experience, resources, and stuff like that, maybe, there'll be, one that kind of more realizes some of that.
Maybe. I mean, there could be more polish, or he could add more systems,
Either would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds neat. Just the fact that it is this big this big system sandbox.
Exactly. Yeah. So, other than that, just one more game. I played like 10 minutes of it. So the folks behind Kingdom of Loathing and West of Loathing, as far as I can tell, basically did a next game's out now.
Yeah, no, it was on November the 11th. They're like, hey, guess what? Whole new game now. Have it. Bye. Then like, it even caught me by surprise. Like,
right. And so this is Shadow over Loathing, which is seems to be the same model as like West of Loathing, except that it's Lovecraft themed. Honestly, I'm still messing around with like some of the character creation, that sort of thing. So I have very little to say about it. It appears that you go in very early on, and you're kind of similar to West of Loathing. You're heading out of town, and you start at a truck stop, and someone asks you, why you're why you're leaving. And based on what what just weird off the wall answer you give, gives your starting perk that I'm assuming is maybe like a class type thing or something. I'm not sure. Some of my favorites are, you can say that you got in trouble for beating up a phone booth. Or
to be fair, it was asking for it.
Yeah, exactly. Or I set a mailbox on fire and I do it again. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I love is their explanation for you starting the game and not having gone through character creation yet is that you have a magazine that like blew and got like stuck on your face, in a storm. And so you're just kind of wandering around trying to find a bathroom so you can get this thing off your face. And you can wander into oncoming traffic and instantly die and game over.
Of course, yeah.
So again, keeps with the tradition of just over the top things, but
yeah,
that's all I've got on it. So I'll probably be able to say more next time, but I'm definitely down for it.
I'm looking forward to digging in myself. I just have to get a little bit further in personal play, or not personal play. This would be
Work
personal
play.
play.
The other
Work
one.
play.
Impersonal
Sorry.
play.
Which one are you? Yeah. I'm going to do mine. I have two, but they're going to be very quick, so do not worry. The first one is that the DLC for Resident Evil Village came out. Shadows over Rose. It was part of a larger kind of content drop, improving the Mercenaries game, adding third-person mode to the main game, and then kind of the centerpiece is this story mode that takes place 16 years after Resident Evil Village, where you are playing as Rose, as Ethan and Mia's daughter, who has grown up, and because of her parentage, let's say, has developed these powers and no longer wants them. So she has to go into basically the hive mind of this, fungus that has, been the primary, MacGuffin kind of deal of the of 7 and 8. But you go into a psychic realm and you're it's bad. It's not very good.
She's respecking. She's doing a respec.
Yeah, she's going in there looking for like a purification crystal, so she's not burdened with this condition anymore, right?
Oh, crystals. Now it all makes sense.
Yeah, crystals. Yeah. It's kind of hard to. So I'm not going to like give like story stuff away, but like I really don't mind that they reuse a lot of assets, like whatever. But it's also very, very predictable. When I streamed this, I made certain calls, and it's like, okay, yes, this is here's how this is. Here's what that is. Here's what's going on here, and even like the situations that it puts you in are pretty just kind of like, oh yeah, like that's real similar. Like, it does something like in the basement of the Beneviento house. which was like the real spooky like PT like area in 8. But like it you do something very similar in that. Like it's different, but it's not different enough. People seem to be like really blown away by it, but I was like, yeah, just not enough. That and like that's one of the worst bosses I've played in a video game at the very end of it. It's not very good. And the end boss of Resident Evil 8 is no peach either. Like it's just not a good boss fight. And neither is this one. It feels like real sloppy, and just not very well put together. Like there is like a resolution to it, but it's it does not feel like it is really at all connected to the series at large. Like it doesn't reveal anything really about like where things could be going, while also closing off like this portion of the story. Like so yeah,
like visually interesting or anything, or is this just complete
there's
the board?
There's some cool stuff in there. Like there's neat imagery and things, but like again, it just the watchword for it is just kind of like not enough, right?
So
like, yeah.
Most important question: does it have a Amazonian vampire lady?
I mean, I forget. Like maybe no. Lady Demetress never really shows up. Like you're in a version of her castle for a while, but no, Lady Demetress is not really a factor.
Yeah.
Are you gonna talk about how they do the Duke dirty in this one?
Yeah, the Duke is there. You're a merchant who is hefty, let's say. The Duke is there, and in the main game, like, yeah, he's a little bit suspicious because he knows stuff that he's not telling you, but generally he's like really positive. Like he's kind of the first villain that you run into in this psychic realm, and there's really no explanation for why he is there or why he is like that. So,
wait, so you're fighting John Wayne?
No, I mean the Duke is literally the name of the merchant that you have there. Yeah, it'd be weird if you were fighting John Wayne. I mean, he sucked, so that's fine. But fight him, it's fine. But also this like Resident Evil has never really done the let's go to a psychic realm where anything can happen kind of thing, and it is not a good look on them. They're not used to playing in that space, and it's just I don't know, just not enough is what I would say about this. Like there are highlights, and I think there people watching it like got more out of it than I did. So I'm not saying like, hey, stay away because the improvements to Mercenaries, I haven't played them, but I've also heard that those are really good, like that fun action arcade game version mode that they've had since way back when. But yeah, I was just real bummed out. And it's the predictability that's a problem more than anything, because like RE7's DLC, it had multiple pieces of it, and some of it was more successful than others, but like it was actually pretty hard to guess which one. I mean, it's the one where like the DLC you're playing as the swamp man who punches stuff to death, right? Like,
well,
I mean, that sounds
predictability
great.
is not always the worst thing in horror, right? Like there's a lot of ways to use a predictable outcome, as it were, to great effect.
Yeah,
like something feeling inevitable, or like the feeling of like, see, I knew it. Like that can be really effectively used. So it's sad that it didn't quite get there.
Yeah, it just oh, good.
I have a question. Since in the base game, like all the bad people were kind of like new takes on classic horror things, like vampires, werewolves, like Frankenstein, that sort of thing. Do you think they were trying to do anything with this where it's like, this is what paranormal like horror is, like current day or something like that? Or do you think they were trying to do like evolve anything like that with this game? Or
no, it wasn't coherent enough for that. Yeah.
Well,
so question:
a fresh twist on coherent storylines.
Hey, there you go.
What were you going to say, David?
As someone who's not played any of the recent ones, why is there at least a very notable contingent that just despises Ethan?
Oh, because he's dumber than the sky is big.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He has like no personality.
Yeah, it just perfectly smooth brain. Like you ever see? Yeah, it is very hard to sympathize with him. And there's not really a trait that you can ascribe to him other than like I'm angry at what these people in Louisiana are doing to me. Like he just exists kind of to be thrown around there, and in in Village, he's basically just I just want my kid back. Like
Tom Janed it.
yeah. So it's I just kind of don't care for him. Like he has fun, like there are opportunities for fun lines. I think especially in 7 where things are just kind of generally a little bit more campy. It's just nothing about him seems either cool or like hits with any real pathos.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, because I've heard, honestly, a lot of what I've heard is people being excited about this DLC because it's apparently the end of his story.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go into details on it about exactly how it articulates because it also implicates the ending of Resident Evil 8 too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Fair enough.
So yeah, I don't know that I can go that far. It's a bummer. I you know, we waited a long time for this, and I wanted more, you know, but it just wasn't enough. Any questions about? Oh, go ahead.
Who's the we in waiting a long time for this DLC?
Oh no, I mean, just it's been a long time. Like I've wanted this DLC. You know, like the Resident Evil 8, fine game. It was good. Some of the shine came off the apple, but I was curious about more, and just it took a long time, and that time is not really reflected. To me.
Maybe their like work was split between this and like the Resident Evil 4 remake.
It's possible that they pulled a lot of people off of this to work on RE4, especially because that had such a troubled development that I could see that.
Which is funny because the original one had a very troubled development as well.
Yep. Any other questions about Shadows of Rose?
Don't think so.
The last thing that I have is Walkabout Mini Golf, the VR mini golf game that I fucking adore. Just today, they released the DLC map that is Myst Island from the 1993 Cyan adventure game Myst. You know it, you love it, the original Lonely Island. Yeah, it's good. It's real good. Not only just because it is a familiar space and there is mini golf incorporated into it, but like mechanically it is like you're solving puzzles by playing mini golf. Like you're looking at stuff and like you're aiming for particular panels to manipulate the hole and get around there. Like each of the courses is like kind of themed around the world where the world portal that you're nearby. So like the one up by the mechanical age, like that big gear, like there's a central thing that turns when you hit the ball over it. It's super gimmicky and it's super hard. But like, I don't know, I've been waiting for it for a while and like it kind of, I can't wait to play the hard version because when you get like all of these courses have like the regular version of the course and then the hard version, which takes it even further. So yeah.
Do you think there's going to be an Easter egg in the game of how you can like bypass the entire game for the white page ending?
I have no idea. The switches are there, and I did the trick with the switches to see if it would open, but I think I might have done it wrong. But yeah, maybe possibly there are secrets here for me to find. I just was not able to find them with the couple of runs that I did today. Yeah. It's good. Walkabout Mini Golf is very good. So,
nice.
Yeah, and that's
how much are you actually able to walk about? How well does it leverage room scale VR?
I'm able to walk around because I'm playing it in my living room. Just like a little bit. I think it's called Walkabout Mini Golf because you can go anywhere on the course. And like you're incentivized. They're like little collectibles that you can do. That you can get. So there's a hidden.
Sounds like the opposite of golf.
I mean, it just it's fun to explore, like, and by doing like little facsimiles of the Myst puzzles, you can get the like the secret stuff. They're like hidden golf balls that are around, one for each hole. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, I don't know if that's why they called it that, or if just that name was as good as any, but yeah, you are doing, I do prefer to walk up to the ball myself as opposed to doing the square away, press the button and go kind of thing.
I just like the idea of these hidden golf balls that every couple of them, there's just guys like, hey, that's mine.
Yep. A free golf ball.
Nope, collectible now.
I mean, it was just rolling right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
you really want to challenge a guy holding a golf club?
As a side note, on the current events front, Trump is back, baby.
Yeah, surprising literally nobody. Hopefully he flames out.
I mean,
but he never flames out literally. Like, if he could just spontaneously combust just a little bit, just a little spontaneous combustion.
I don't want to provide an exhibit for the court hearing, so yeah.
Going back to Myst Golf. Points for originality on the game concept. It feels almost like a Game Jam product or something, where it's like
to take a familiar sacred space and put like and put mini golf in it. Like, shit, I would love the village from RE4, but with mini golf done through it. Yeah, Silent
Hill mini golf. Into it.
Yeah. Then so they've shown that they can do it respectfully and lovingly. Like they nailed it. It's good, man.
So in Silent Hill mini golf, would you have to just switch back and forth between the Rust dimension and whatever the real world?
I was thinking to like get around the windmill, you have to go to the Rust dimension where it's like all broken apart, so it's not actually a hazard or something.
So it's 9 holes, but the front 9 is in the Myst world and the back 9 is in the other world, and the holes themselves are changed.
But didn't you say they've already done the Myst world?
Yeah, I was confused by that as well, but I got it.
Yeah, this is the Misty Silent Hill or other world. Silent Hill, yeah.
No, I just wanted to make a dumb joke.
Oh, yeah. That's what I've got. Dennis.
Yeah, let's bring this sucker home. First, let's just check in on 2 games I've talked about before. Playing more Deep Rock Galactic. Having a blast, and got my first character to promotion. So once you gain 25 levels, you get a special set of missions, and once you complete those missions, you are promoted. And you keep all your stuff, but your level resets, and you get some extra perks and all that. It kind of opens up kind of the more arcane and gamey crafting stuff. However, I find it very funny that because you've reached max level when you get your promotion missions, it is most optimal for you to play those missions with literally anyone other than the person you're promoting.
Oh,
because like you're not going to get any XP on them. Like go play it with your weakest guy and start leveling that person up. And so it's funny that like all the text is like, all right, we've got a special test for you, and you get to the end, it's like, all right, well done, you've really proven your merit. And it's like, shoot, I was just sitting on the couch.
To be fair, in real life, when you get promoted, you stop working as well. So,
yes. But yeah, that was cool. Felt good. And then also, literally the day that we are recording, a new set released for Magic the Gathering. And so, Ben, I don't know if you want to jump on with any commentary if you followed it at all. Apparently, this is also like a thematic reprint. Like this is an older set from Magic, and I'm unclear on how much they've updated it or what's changed, but the cards are all new to me, and it's kind of fun to see this taking off and all the speculation actually being able to understand more of those words. I had a great moment. This would have been last night, I guess. Their ranked season ended as the new set released, and so I was right on the cusp between their platinum tier and diamond tier, and how they decide what's higher than the other, I don't know anymore. But and I was, there was like just a couple hours left in the night, and I was bouncing off that like promotion match, and finally right at the end got it and got into the next rank, which had better rewards for the season and all that. and barely snuck my way through. But yeah, so right now in Magic the Gathering, it is new set release chaos. The meta will be shaken up. There will be new stuff to try, and lots of cards that I will not sink money into buying. But that's a topic for another time.
And double price drafts, yay!
There's a free one. Oh, is it all double price now for the paid drafts or the permanent drafts?
So I'm out of the Magic game. I'm not going back yet. But if it's anything like what it usually is on Arena, like they'll have a draft weekend or whatever, but to pay for a draft, it's usually twice the cost of what it normally is because it's like new cards.
Yeah,
pay more.
I could see that. I can check and tell you. The one mode that they have at the start is a phantom draft, or a phantom sealed mode. So basically, they just you start the mode and they just give you 6 packs of cards, and then you build a deck from those cards. And you can play with those and win rewards for winning games with those, but you don't actually keep any of the packs that you opened.
Yep.
Whereas other modes are more costly, but they you get to keep the cards. No, the price of drafts is the same as of right now.
Is it 750 gems and 5,000 coin?
No, it is double priced then. I remember drafts being at 10,000.
They might have like increased the base price.
Yeah. It is the same base price I have always seen. So there might be some draftflation going on there.
Boo.
Yeah, oh well.
What is the theme this time around?
So it is, again, the lore I don't really understand, but it's all like automatons and mechanical things, and these two brothers are building different mechanical armies against each other. And that theme kind of runs throughout.
Isn't that literally the story of Team Fortress 2?
Yep.
Oh shit! I think there were some special cards that they released that were actually themed after Transformers. I couldn't tell you more than that, but there are some Transformers sprinkled in there because it feels like Magic. Was this anyone's article this week that Magic the Gathering got kind of slammed by some financial institutions for devaluing their assets and releasing too many cards? And
no, that's real. That's goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway, the theme there is man, what I care least about. The mechanics, there's like prototype cards where you can play them in a smaller form for a cheaper cost, but they still have all their card text, so it's kind of select a size. And then a lot of stuff with artifacts and playing with your graveyard off the top of my head. So.
For reference, I think it's tied in the Kaladesh universe, which is a set from like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Sure, I can't say you're wrong.
It's optimistic steampunk type setting.
That feels like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Wait, no, steampunk is like a defining trait of steampunk is optimism. That's what separates it from dieselpunk.
Oh, I was thinking cyberpunk.
Yeah, no, steampunk is basically pre-World War One. Dieselpunk is post-World War One. So back when we had faith in humanity versus once we realized that we're all just going to kill each other. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was super like nerdy. Like pushes
that's a distinction.
Classes.
Yeah, never apologize for dissecting the punks. But yeah, so that's kind of my two standbys right now. And then the new game that I have to talk about is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. This is kind of the standalone Borderlands offshoot, with the convention that you are trapped in a bunker with a small group of people, including Tiny Tina, who, to pass the time, has decided to GM a game of D&D, or as they call it in universe, Bunkers and Badasses. Because they're not actually paying for Dungeons and Dragons licensing. But yeah, I got a couple friends. We were talking about playing, a game together, but everyone was on a different platform. She had like some PS4, some PS5, some Xbox, I think one PC. And so it was so distributed, we needed to find something that was on all the platforms with crossplay, which through this process I learned is not nearly as common as it should be. Like, your Giganto battle royale shooters, yes, you can play with anyone on any platform. But if you don't want to do that, your options get limited really quickly. And there's games that are cross-play between PS4 and PS5, but not everything else. Deep Rock Galactic, for example, is cross-play between Windows Store and Xbox, but not Steam and Xbox. God, no. And then, PlayStation's on its own island. It's just like, man, I guess I had in my head that we had kind of moved beyond this bullshit.
Oh, no.
But no, it is still there in force. So Tiny Tina's Wonderlands was one of the only games that we found that everyone was interested in playing and that supported all the different systems that we wanted. Which, to its credit, it was very easy to get 4 people, once the game was installed, together in the same menu and started on the same game. So for, I guess, my expectation usually of a new game, especially if you're trying to play multiplayer, like the first session is pretty much just trying to fix everyone's tech problems. This was pretty seamless. And the Borderlands style of storytelling and humor fits so well within the convention of this is all a TTRPG.
Yeah.
Like that kind of just, everyone wants to be a badass, but also is kind of silly. In outrageous situations and set pieces. Like it just fits it so well. It's like, of course, like this feels like what the entire series has been in actuality. Like, let's just zoom out again and see that it's all, it's recursive tabletop games all the way back.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job with Tiny Tina as GM. I think they found a sweet spot for her, just in terms of in 2, she was just, too much manic child, right? And then if I remember correctly, in 3, she was kind of an adult. And it didn't land right for me. And so this, I don't know where it is stuck between those two. But it's kind of just this, manic GM, and it works really well. So they've reined her in and kind of given her a role that suits the personality. Let's see. Yeah, the big new thing mechanically is that instead of grenades, you have spells.
Okay.
And they are.
I mean, grenades are just spells for grunty Call of Duty, man.
Yeah. To be fair, the first grenade that everyone gets is just a frost meteorite that hits the ground. So effectively the same thing. But yeah, and Borderlands has always done a good job with like grenades just do crazy, silly things. And spells, I think, loosens that limitation even further. So yeah, I've seen the meteorite ones. I've seen ones that like summon hydras out of the ground to attack people. There's like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Is this still a first-person shooter?
So that's the interesting thing. Yes, it is. The moment-to-moment gameplay, absolutely yes. You're doing the Borderlands thing. And honestly, aside from the grenade switching to spells, all the other stuff, guns and class powers and everything feels very similar. I appreciated that in this game there are 6 classes to choose from, whereas the other games, at least when they released, only started with 4. So if you're playing with a full set, everyone had to get into a lane. Whereas this, it felt like just those extra couple classes gave everyone a little bit more flexibility. So it's the Borderlands thing. It's the first person shooter thing until you get to the overworld. In the previous games, when you leave kind of a not bespoke area, but when you leave a mission area, there's this giant sprawling, Borderlands that you travel through that kind of has side quests and everything baked in. Well, in this, you get done with your first kind of tutorial series of missions and hit the button to go to the overworld. And suddenly you are in like an isometric view controlling a mini of yourself.
Okay.
And you're wandering around literally a tabletop version of the world that Tiny Tina has constructed. And there's amazing little touches throughout that, like, a cliff face is actually a D6 that has been kind of planted down, and like, a drawbridge is actually made of a bottle cap, and stuff like that. Like it looks like something that a GM would put together. And that's a ton of fun. And so you kind of waddle around this world in mini form. And there are random encounters that pop up. So you can see enemies on the map. It's almost got like a Pokemon feel of like, oh, you're in the tall grass, like watch out. And then to get like from one area of a map to another, you kind of have to go through an encounter. So like there's a building or a mine that you want to walk in one side and out the other of the mine. And inside the mine is a first person encounter. But that was very refreshing just because I had no idea that was in the game. I was completely not expecting it. And I don't feel like I tried to avoid information on this game, and I don't know how I missed that. But yeah, talk about shock when all of a sudden you're playing, moving around this little like chibi minifigure version of yourself.
I mean, is that just a way to move from like first person dungeon to first person dungeon, or is there like combat that takes place there?
No combat. It is first person dungeon to first person dungeon. There is like exploration and finding, hidden areas on the map. So there's a little bit of adventuring that happens. I'm also fairly early on. So this is like, 3 hours in. So they could be doing all kinds of stuff on the mini map that I haven't seen yet. But certainly as like a very strong break from the traditional format of Borderlands. So far it's worked out pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'll be playing that more again on Thursday. That's the problem with playing with a group is like, all right, we've got the one day everyone can get together, and I guess I just won't touch the game.
Yeah, and you don't want to like start a side game and then get so far ahead and suddenly you're leading people around.
Yeah, I feel like it'll loosen up when either this group gets through the campaign once and then everyone's kind of playing through the campaign for the second or whatever time, and then it's like, okay, well, it's Borderlands does pretty well with drop in, drop out, like that can work. Or if we're all like grinding for end game stuff, I don't know what their rating equivalent is in the game, but Borderlands generally does a pretty good job having cool stuff to go chase down once you're through the main quest. So we shall see.
Nice. No, I had heard nothing about this. I in my head, I think I envisioned it as like a Minecraft Dungeons style thing. Like, oh, this is Diablo, but with, I mean, Borderlands is already pretty similar to Diablo. But to hear that it has that structure. Yeah, no, I knew nothing about it. Yeah,
and I remember like seeing headlines of like, oh yeah, it's a really good Borderlands, this kind of offshoot, and I was like, oh, that's good. I was Borderlands out at that point. But man, I'm glad that I kind of came around on it.
Neat.
That is me.
That is you, man. That was a very long. We had all been playing a lot, so
miss a week, miss a lot.
2 weeks worth of stuff, I guess. Yeah,
that'll teach them to have stressful elections.
Multiplayer.
Now it is time for the multiplayer, where we ask you a question and you answer. Dennis, what is the question that you ask the nice people?
Yeah, this is kind of. What attracts you to a game at first glance? So what feature will make you immediately interested in any game that has it? This could be like a setting, thematically, a mode, a voice actor, or anything else.
Yeah, and I'll get started here. Eli says, horror theming, but it does not necessarily need to be a horror game. I just love the vibe. Bonus points if I see Lovecraft influence. Well, not the influence of his politics, that is. Yeah. I mean, I'm a mark for that too. I feel you.
Now I want to see a game that just has no elements of horror aside from like aesthetic nods. It's like, no one ever acknowledges the horror elements, but the player can see them.
I mean, there are lots of games that have horror aesthetics but are not scary at all.
Friday the 13th.
This is fair.
David, what does Jeremy say?
Jeremy says, any combat game featuring sword fighting with a challenging side that requires good reflex and punishing combat that requires all your attention. It's so satisfying when everything comes together. Also, one thing that's fun for those types of game is when you can adjust the difficulty on the go. That way you can always enjoy the gameplay. Best example for me would be Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah. Makes sense. I do like being able to adjust the difficulty on the fly. It feels really antiquated when it locks you in at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or, Sekiro of just not adjusting at all.
One difficulty.
It's funny. I can probably count the times I've actually adjusted difficulty mid-campaign on one hand. Maybe on one finger.
Mm-hmm.
But just the safety net of like knowing it's there relieves a lot of mental pressure.
Yeah.
I still think I'm obligated to call out the difficulty settings in Shadow of War, where they have a mode that's basically everything deals more damage and recharges quicker, including both you and your opponent. So it's not more difficult, just higher risk.
Yeah. That's cool. Let's see. Ben, what does Greg say?
Greg says, any kind of city or nation building will get me interested no matter what the rest of the game is. As sim and strategy games are my favorites.
Yeah. Same. Agreed. a lot of people are hitting my buttons here, at least. Dennis,
I've kind of like hovered over. Maybe I should just start a run of Crusader Kings 3 so many times.
You got to do the 1.5 hour tutorial first, though.
Yeah, if I disappear, you'll know what happened.
It's a real good tutorial.
And I mean, as America slides into fascism, it's very topical.
Well, I mean, that would be Hearts of Iron, but
okay.
Dennis, what does Ruki say?
Ruki says a runtime of about 4 to 8 hours, possibly shorter, depending on the genre. All of my recent favorites managed to fit in this window.
Hooting and hollering along with Ruki.
Yes. Wait a second. Are these all just Kole alts?
They're describing neat stuff. This last one isn't me. Not because I'm against it. Not for it, but I don't use this kind of computer. Sam says a native
the Pokemon for it.
No. I'm, are you for it or against it? Not against it. But no. Sam says native Linux version. Yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially if you use Linux.
or like
okay.
I didn't mean that to be dismissive. It's just like, you would probably want it to be able to run on your computer that you like to use.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't being dismissive. I just mean, you probably care about Linux version if you're running Linux.
One imagines.
I don't know, Cole. I got major, not that there's anything wrong with that, vibes.
That was not intentional.
I just like to collect games. I don't like to play them.
I mean, for me, probably somewhere between Greg and Ruki. If you give me like any ability to like manage stuff, I really like getting in there and doing it.
You're saying you want Crusader Kings to have a 4 to 8 hour tutorial?
No, I mean, no, but like being able to run a whole campaign in that short of time, so I can play as other kingdoms and such. A shorter iteration loop would be nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's me. Let's see, David, how about you?
So I think for me, I'd go with morally ambiguous transhumanism and body horror. So basically, if a game will put me in uncomfortable, situations that aren't explicitly evil or bad and challenge me to decide if I'm all right with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much my go-to.
Nice.
So
Dead Space-ian games.
Dead Space, to a certain degree, Dead Space was a little bit too much. Like what's happening is overtly bad. I think like BioShock would be a good example.
I mean, the recent example for you is Deathloop, right?
Yeah, Deathloop's a good Yeah, no,
Army of Two.
Mhm.
Right.
There's no ambiguity there.
Uh,
How about you, Ben?
I think anything that's like a AAA Lovecraft, I will play in an attempt to find a good piece of Lovecraft material that will never exist.
They're gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. The survival horror game was pretty sweet.
It's pretty rough if you go back to it. is my experience with it. Like they're definitely they're real highs on that. Yeah. And Dennis, round us out.
Yeah, I think my go-to would be asymmetrical play.
Yeah.
Like your evolved style game. I don't that's the Eternal example, but Dead by Daylight is probably the better better one at this point. But anything like that where you're playing not just different classes, but significantly different versions of the game, but it meshes together. I just find that really cool.
See, it's funny because to me that is one of my like game killer things where it's like all the time just great games, and then they'll be like, and it's PvPvE. And it's like, no. I don't need institutionalized trolling.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be that, but like, man, now I'm failing to find really good examples. But even if you're doing co-op and both playing very different roles, there was a great game that I played for a little bit where one of you was like the mission agent in the field, and the other one was
Operation Tango.
Yes, thank you. And the other one was like the hacker controller.
Oh, that does sound cool.
Yeah, that was cool as hell. So anything like that, I am for. Doesn't have to be.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for writing in. Thank you, Dennis, for posting that. If you would like to participate in those in the multiplayer in the future, go to facebook.com/thelevelpodcast. Watch for the prompts to go up on Monday afternoons.
The End Boss.
Now it is time for the End Boss, where we talk about things that are happening, oftentimes that are exciting to us, oftentimes related to the world of video games. Let's see here. Dennis, you got a story about a game that just came out recently. What's happening with that?
Yeah, so God of War Ragnarok came out, and they did the collector's edition thing where there's a special super expensive version with a metal case and all these feelies, and it comes in a chest, and that's all great except for one small detail, which is that the game wasn't actually in the package for a lot of people that bought the $200 collector's edition.
So I would be annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, this is it comes in a gold embossed box. There's like a 16-inch replica of Thor's hammer, all this cool stuff. And I guess the company that assembles it just kind of didn't put that finishing touch in of the game.
That's
the
a
finishing
nightmare.
touch of function.
Yeah, it's not too great.
It's like all of our most dedicated fans who are going to spend a whole bunch of money to get this thing.
Yeah.
The ones who want to play it most cannot.
Yes, absolutely gut-wrenching for the people that had to go through this. Made worse by the fact that, like, if you contact Sony, they say that, that's the fault of the retailer, they'll make it right. And if you contact the retailer, they say, that's the fault of Sony, they'll make it right. And around we go. So the director of God of War Ragnarok was actually jumping into a select few people and like just trying to help directly people that were complaining. He was sending them codes through Twitter, but that can only reach so many people with problems.
Yeah.
And everyone else is kind of caught in the lurch. So
what a shit show.
I just like to imagine him delivering this, boy, enter this code.
Yeah. Well, no, you gotta hit triangle and hold up your hand, and the code will come flying to you from wherever they left it. Yeah. Anyway, things that you should make sure of before you ship out your product.
Yeah, it's a bummer
that the game isn't there.
Oof. That's a game that came out recently. I've got a game that was just announced officially. They're making a Control 2.
Hell yeah.
Yes, so that is going to be a sequel. It's going to be bigger in scope, going to have more kind of resources behind it. It is, you know, you don't really get a sense of this when you play it, because Control is kind of this prestige game, and Remedy, you know, kind of just is really good at polish. But like Control is a really cheap game to make, especially as concerns their usual timelines and budgets, things like that. It was faster and it was cheaper, so they're putting more resources into this, and my hope is that they will bring in some combat variety. That'd be pretty cool.
See, I think my hope here is that they spend the entirety of the expanded budget on more in-world TV shows.
I'm sure there will be another one.
Yeah. There's probably budget already earmarked for that since it's Remedy.
Yeah, but I'm I'm curious. Let's say I'm curious to see what a widened scope Control would be like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Going to this. Hey, David, what's happening with Fallout 76?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a, this is a thing that exists. A fan, or I guess a number of fans, made a live action trailer for Fallout 76, and it's actually really, really good. Mm-hmm. In particular, some of the highlights are the armor design on it. In particular, the power armor is just really right on, and I guess is well selected in terms of like watching it. If you've played the game, there's just constant like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. The other thing is, I don't know for sure if it was shot in West Virginia, but it definitely nails that look. Mm-hmm. Is probably one of the most different settings for one of the Fallout games. Mm-hmm. So that's, really nice to see. So it's really well done, and it really captures kind of the best version of this world. It even kind of has, one of the voiceovers from the game that's, if you're hearing this message, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Which is both, it's one of the cooler quest lines that's specifically from, and also that whole thing of like, so much of the game is you finding and tracking down, information on people that are long dead. So it's simultaneously a callback to one of the best parts of the game, and a part of the game that's just very typical of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's very cool.
Neat. Yeah, sounds like the fans are doing a better job of communicating about Fallout 76 than Bethesda is.
Yeah, that am a thing.
Oh, I'm not even really referring to a specific incident. It's just you don't really hear. I mean, they're mostly communicating to people who already play the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And Ben, round us out. What's on fire? Besides everything.
This is a story that has been a week in the making. So rewind time, back in like March on the podcast, I think I talked about it. One of the games that I was like really heavily into, Storybook Brawl, got bought by a crypto company that wanted to put NFTs in the game. So I uninstalled the game. I have not played it since. I was really bummed out, blah, blah, blah. The company is called FTX, which is in the news in the past week. They've had a real they've made a real go of it in the past week. So Friday they declared bankruptcy. Friday night they got hacked for $400 million. The next 2 days there were stories that came out where it's I think how many funds were. It was like $1 billion of clients' funds were missing, either by like neglect in bookkeeping or by like just money disappearing for some reason. Yeah. There's stories of a bunch of hedge fund companies starting to get screwed over because they had invested too heavily in crypto. No sympathy at all for them.
Nope.
Except if it affects like individuals, like somehow. But whatever.
That's the thing. There are like unions and pensions that have been pulled in. Basically, this is on the scale. This is making Bernie Madoff look like he was just kind of like doing penny ante poker in the in the schoolyard kind of stuff. It's the FTX has fucked over a whole bunch of people, and this is going to have cascading effects, not just because they bought Storybook Brawl, but like anything that relates to specifically NFT or crypto stuff is going to be affected by this, and stuff is just plummeting in value, making it kind of a question like, okay, so why would we do anything with this just very, very harmful scam in our product?
FTX was specifically billed as like, no, this one is stable.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I believe they're a trading platform. They're not like a cryptocurrency themselves or anything like that.
They had their own token, but yeah, they were an exchange. Also, they were an exchange that like they had $9 billion in liabilities. People could do it, and they had like what was it, 400 million.
It was a factor of 9. They had like leveraged like 9 times what they had in assets.
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so to speak of why they declared bankruptcy is there's basically like a run on the market where I forget what the name of the coin was, but a certain coin had like crashed, and so a lot of people were trying to cash out at the same time. And so they were kind of scrambling. They were trying to, I think they were in talks with another company, I think it was a Coinbase, to buy them out so that they could get money to pay all the people who are cashing out. Yeah, but then when Coinbase reviewed their like books and everything, they pulled out of the deal. So they're like,
"Oh hell no!"
Yeah, Coinbase is having their own problems. Yeah, I think what caused the run it was Luna and Terra went down, and then Celsius, kind of another like explicitly like we're a bank but for crypto kind of deal, that fell. And I think that put too much pressure on their game that they were running, FTX. And then, this is the next dominator is probably going to be Coinbase.
Yeah.
So am I taking away I should not be launching Dennis Coin this weekend?
So the value of crypto is plummeting.
Coin of wonders.
But the value of Schadenfreude is skyrocketing right now.
Yeah.
So this is straight up the like stealing something clever. Someone in one of the discussions on this said, but I saw someone said, build a system in which rules don't apply and rule breakers can't be held accountable, and then be surprised when criminals flood in.
Yeah. Just kind of like, well, where's my money? Like, why did anybody stop this from happening? It's like, you guys talk about deregulation all the time. It's kind of the thing of this. So you want the government to step in now?
Yeah.
Kind of seems like you want all the benefits of being in a society, but none of the costs. Weird.
Yep.
All these people could have seen a 2-hour documentary like a year ago to figure all this stuff out, but now it's kind of the reality sitting in. So
yeah. So I don't know that we're going to be seeing a lot of crypto stuff popping up in games for a while.
I am completely fine with this stuff dying out. So if this hastens that process, then thumbs up.
Didn't Square Enix or somebody sell the farm to like get in on this?
Yeah, that what was it, like symbiogenesis or whatever? Like what I thought was a Parasite Eve thing. No, not Parasite Eve. Just more like NFT crypto shit. Square Enix is doing fucking awful.
We need to make like a Pikachu open mouth meme, but for Slowpoke now. It's just like, all right, guys, I'm all in on crypto now. Let's go.
How do y'all feel about buttoning up?
Buttons.
The credits.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to level number 436. It's been a good time. We should be back, I believe, maybe next week. We'll see how many of us we can get here. I know, David, you're going to be traveling. We'll figure it out. But Thanksgiving may make it unusual or no show. Who knows? Hard to tell. But if you want to help out the show, you know what to do. You've listened to podcasts before. Subscribe, rate, review. There's the Duckfeed Patreon. There is, what do we have here? The Facebook for the multiplayer. It's all good. Is there anything big I'm forgetting?
Have a good Thanksgiving, I guess.
Yes.
You can say that next week, though, too.
Yes. Please do. Please be safe if you're traveling and all of that. Yeah.
Ben, we're not guaranteed to be here next week. You should say it now.
Oh,
That's a good point. I mean, was it Poland was bombed today? Not to sidetrack or anything. So fair point, Dennis.
Yeah, nothing is guaranteed. Things don't always get better. Yeah,
current events keep on like Kool-Aid Manning through the wall of our podcast.
When.
I like the somber ending, by the way, too. Let's get a little reality gut check for the listener before we end the show.
Remember, life is fleeting, and yes,
yeah. At the end of everything, hold on to anything. That's not original. That's Night in the Woods. Yeah. So I've been Kole Ross. You can see my streams on Twitch at Duckfeed.tv.
I've been Dennis Furia. Come hang out in the Deck of Wonders Discord.
I'm David Mysmith.
I'm Ben Merkel. I'm just happy to be here.
And stick around for some titles. All right. Let's see here. This is weird. I think I want to go back to revealing them at the end instead of having them down there. Yeah.
Oh, you guys put them in there as you went?
Yeah. So we're not going to get like the gut punch on these. But Ben, what titles do you have?
Dehumanize before you dehumanize.
Okay.
You sound so deflated.
David, you and I share share one here, Dissecting the Punks.
Yep.
Yeah. Dennis, what titles do you have? Man, it feels weird asking something I know the answer to.
Yeah.
The Socratic method here.
Yeah.
No, I had nutmegging, which was in reference to being able to run between people's legs, and then just a little bit of alliteration there, like do the Duke dirty.
I feel like nutmegging, that should be some sort of, it's like negging for Christmas.
I like Dissecting the Punks.
I like it as well.
I don't think the punks like that.
Well, I don't really care what they say.
Let's talk about that. Why don't you think they like it?
They don't like.
I guess it depends on which dissection it is. Yeah.
I don't know. They might be into that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it is decided. I'm going to stop the recording. Bye.